In this machine, the bearings aren't completely destroyed yet, there's just a humming noise that has started to appear. But it's already unpleasant, so we're going to replace the bearings.
In this video, I'll explain how to replace the bearings in a Samsung washing machine. So, after I replaced the pump, it worked for a bit, and then stopped spinning well. It's spinning very slowly, and my wife is complaining that it's not wringing out the clothes properly. I laid it on its side and removed the back cover. We took off this part with the little laughing figure, which is the drive of the machine. Now everything seems fine, but when I turn the shaft of the machine, I can feel some resistance. Here's our shaft. I'll give it a spin, and the machine rattles and shakes. Everything seems perfectly fine with the operational limit of the system, but when I carefully and slowly turn the rotating shaft of the mechanical machine, I can distinctly and clearly feel some unusual and unexpected resistance that wasn't there before. Here's our shaft. The machine shakes. The bearing is bad. If I move the shaft, there's play, which shouldn't be there. The water hasn't started leaking yet. This indicates that the bearing has failed. Also, if you take the shaft and move it a little, you can feel some play, which should not be there. Although, the water hasn't started leaking yet. But still, there's definitely an issue with one of the bearings, and we need to sort it out. Let's get to work. Now we need to remove the drum of the washing machine, which has 2 bearings installed. Let's get to work. Now we need to remove the drum of the washing machine, which has 2 bearings installed. I've already bought the bearing. The ones claim to be Italian. Here and there, in various places, they are slightly different by one size. In some instances, one is bigger, one is smaller. Here's one that ends 25908. The second one is 25907, and judging by the inscriptions it says Ariston, possibly of good quality. Based on the reviews, I thought it would be better not to go for Ukrainian and Russian ones because they are very noisy, and the machine will operate loudly. The Italian ones are a bit more expensive, of course, but it's worth it for them to work well and quietly. And the machine will operate loudly. Italian ones are a little more expensive, of course, but it's worth it if they work well and quietly. Let's get started. We will now need to lift the car and begin to disassemble it, because in order to get to the drum, you need to take the entire machine. This is a very tricky job. Let's get started on that. First, we remove the powder dispenser by pressing the central lock. It's coming out of its socket. You can see that it's already a bit dirty. There are a lot of powder residues. Before we install it, let's wash it well. There are 2 screws here that need to be unscrewed. After we unscrew them, we will have access to the control system of the washing machine. We use a Phillips screwdriver, a tool designed for this purpose, to unscrew them. This involves carefully turning the screwdriver to loosen the screws. Let's put all the screws in one place so we don't lose them or forget where they were. Now, we need to remove the top cover. To do this, you need to unscrew 2 screws at the back. One is on the left, the other is on the right. In the washing machine, the larger head is specifically engineered to provide optimal contact with the plastic material, ensuring efficiency and effectiveness in its function. However, dealing with this can be quite a hassle, so it might be beneficial to consider removing it to simplify the process and make things more manageable. I pulled the cover towards myself and lifted the new one out of phase. This is how the cover of the Samsung VF0508 machine specifically in the latest model, looks like, as you can see. Let's set it aside. And now we need to remove the front panel from the control board and connect all the connectors of the control board. Again, making sure not to mix them up. Pressing from the bottom. Let's disconnect the connectors. There are 2 screws securing the front panel. Let's unscrew them. What needs to be done with the connected reserves? I mentioned it because something might catch fire. Here we connect the other connectors on the control board. All connectors are removed by pressing the button at the bottom. Before that, you also need to carefully remove the powder receiver. Here are 3 small, short self-tapping screws. We connect the hose to the tank and make sure it is tightly fitted. And it will fit into its place. After that, the control board is removed from the front panel. We connect everything that we didn't get to at the beginning. Using a screwdriver, we press and remove the entire panel. Here's what our panel looks like. So this is how it looks. Let's set it aside. You can wipe it with a dry cloth. Here, be careful. Here is the flow. It's all coated with lacquer. It's a very reliable installation. We need to disconnect the front panel. To do this, we unscrew 2 screws at the top. Let's remove the decorative cover that we are closing. Pump filter drain. It easily unclips here if you gently press on both sides of the latch. This is how it goes as well. Now we need to carefully unscrew 3 screws at the bottom. Now we need to carefully open the door and remove the sealing rubber. To do this, we carefully and gently pull back the rubber, and with utmost care and attention, find the standard spring ring there, ensuring everything is in place. It needs to be unhooked. You can remove the locking ring. Here it is. It's spring loaded, and after that we insert the rubber ring inside. I didn't take off the front panel. After unscrewing all the screws, we remove the front cover carefully, trying not to damage it. Closing the doors and the lock. We open it, connect the connector. It's slightly burnt, so we'll need to treat it with lubricant, and we'll set the front cover with the door aside and put it to the side. Now, let's connect the pressure switch hose, and we'll set the front cover with the door aside and put it to the side. Now let's connect the pressure switch hose. Here it is connected. The connector here is also removed by pressing. On the clamp, we take it off from the rest and connect it at the bottom. Everything that's not connected, so it doesn't get in our way anymore. Now we unscrew the ballast from the tank. Now the upper handle of the ballast. We connect the hose that goes to the pump. For this we screw in the pressure switch, fastener. Here it is at this kind of fastener. We loosen the pump clamp for draining. After that it's necessary to disconnect the heating element, contact fastener. In the process, let's remember the location of the main connectors. We rewire the motor and disconnect it from the connector. Now let's unscrew the two bolts that hold the motor in place. Here's the motor. We already have the brushes that we will be replacing later on. We unscrew the shock absorbers from the drum. And now let's move the drum. We are removing the springs from the drum. They weren't in the way. They look like this. Finally we can take the drum out of the washing machine.
I bought an oil seal and two specialized drum bearing plates. Now we need to carefully install both of them onto this main drum to ensure that the entire mechanism works properly. So let's get started. We will need a complete set of specialized wrenches and a strong willingness to get down to work of all. Now let us go ahead and begin the process. First, we carefully start by removing the drum drive pulley. For this, you'll need a 17mm wrench. While holding the pulley, unscrew the bolt counterclockwise. The bolt. After that, the pulley comes off easily. Drum, sausages and everything. Drum axles. That's it, now we have access to the bearings. The next step will be to disassemble the drum tank. To do this, simply take a permanent marker and carefully mark the exact position of both the upper and lower parts of the tank. Taking this step is absolutely necessary so that we don't get confused about its exact position later on when we start the reassembly process. After you have finished that, go ahead and take a size 10 socket attached to your ratchet and carefully start unscrewing each of the drum bolts one by one until they are all completely removed. So, in total, there were 14 bolts that we unscrewed from the drum housing. Now we separate the two halves of the drum. By very carefully and gently pulling on the entire upper section of the component, we can then successfully detach and remove it from the base. This is exactly what the inner workings of the drum look like. After that process is finished, we carefully remove the stainless steel drum out of the tank. This right here is exactly what we are seeing, directly in front of us. Here is the back part of the drum. We can see that the inner bearing has completely fallen apart. Next, we carefully remove the old oil seal by using a standard flathead screwdriver. And we'll eventually reach the internal components to get to the bearing itself. This specific oil seal has already completely disintegrated and deteriorated, so we'll use a pair of pliers to carefully and firmly remove it from its seat, because it's already tightly wedged and stuck in place within the housing. It's coming out slowly. Here you can see the parts, the spring of the oil seal and parts from the bearing that has fallen apart. There are also a bunch of balls lying around. It's like a whole warehouse. Let's try to take out the oil seal. Here it is. The oil seal looks to be in a rather shabby condition. It's all crumbled. It's amazing that water isn't leaking yet. Now, using your hands, you can reach in and pick out the parts of the bearing that has fallen apart. It's amazing that the machine was still running on just one bearing. The inner sleeve. And a bunch of balls that will come in handy for a slingshot. Now you will need to carefully drive out and remove the old bearing from its seat, taking great care so as not to damage the internal mounting surface of the housing. To successfully remove both of the old bearings, use the same penetrating lubricant as before, such as WD-40 or any other similar product. I happen to have Manol on hand for this task. Simply apply a generous amount of the spray directly onto the area and let it sit for a moment. Carefully install it onto the bearing seat, first from one side, and then from the other side. Like this. You can remove the bearings using a special puller tool or a strong screwdriver. We begin by very carefully and methodically tapping it out toward the opposite side of the assembly. Next, we carefully place two sturdy wooden boards underneath for support, set the heavy drum directly on top of them, and then, by taking a large flathead screwdriver, we proceed to gently and steadily tap on the outer part of the component to ensure it is properly seated. Of the outer bearing, here it is, slowly coming out of its nest. You can also choose to apply a light coating of oil well in advance. As you can see here, one of the bearings has now successfully come out of the assembly. It has this shape. Basically, it's still pretty decent, but the balls inside are already starting to stick. Here you will need to take care to ensure that the heating element is not resting directly on the floor, because it could crack or break under the pressure. So at the specific level of the heating element, you should carefully position a sturdy support like a wooden board, and then do the same thing on the other side. we've removed the bearings. The bearing race has been knocked out. It was fitted very tightly. I struggled with it for a long time, but I finally won. Now it is absolutely necessary to perform a thorough and meticulous cleaning of the bearing seats before we can start the process of pressing in the new bearings. Using a piece of very fine sandpaper, specifically grit one, we carefully clean up the entire surface of the seat to remove any burrs, oxidation, or leftover debris that might interfere with a perfect fit. This preparation ensures that the new components will slide in smoothly and function correctly without any premature wear or alignment issues during operation. As you can see, these are the rough metal burrs we created when we carefully knocked out the old bearing from the housing. Now, by applying a bit of WD lubricant, give it a very thorough cleaning to ensure it is spotless. The seating area, and then you can proceed to press in the bearing. In this specific case, its position can be oriented either this way or that way. There is absolutely no strict or required orientation for it. Carefully pick up the new bearing and begin the process of slowly and steadily pressing it into its housing, using a series of very light and controlled taps while utilizing the old drift as a protective buffer to ensure even pressure. I also utilize a specifically designed custom washer that perfectly corresponds to the exact outer diameter of the bearing, which can then be effectively used to securely and evenly press the component into place. Take the washer and place it on. Using improvised tools for the bearing, I have a long bolt, and with the help of such a simple device, we press the bearing into its place. Because it is sensitive to impacts. A single powerful blow can be deadly for it if we hit it hard enough. We lubricate the seating area with lethal in a thin layer and then carefully start pressing it in. At first, you can just gently align the piece so that it fits perfectly into its groove. Make sure it is seated correctly before applying more pressure. Here it is, it's in place. No tilting. Now all that's left is to clean. Inside the water tank area, there is a removable tray here featuring a specialized protective ceramic coating, so it is absolutely best to be careful not to scratch it. That is exactly why I will use a soft bristled manual toothbrush and very gently clean off all of the accumulated scale. It is also very important to thoroughly clean the rubber sealing ring as well, ensuring that there are no mineral deposits or residue left on it at all. In addition to the standard assembly steps, we are also carefully applying a high-quality sealant directly to the working seat of the oil seal. This extra precaution is absolutely necessary because the surface has already become quite worn out over time, and without this layer of protection, there is a significant risk that some fluid might eventually start to leak in or seep through the gaps. It appears that there is some water trapped inside of the mechanical bearing assembly, which means it will likely fail much earlier than expected. In this specific case, applying a layer of sealant will definitely be a necessary step. Furthermore, in addition to the process of carefully applying the sealant inside the oil seal for the shaft, you must ensure full coverage. At this stage of the assembly process, we are going to very slowly and meticulously position the new rubber oil seal, making sure to seat it firmly and correctly into its designated housing. This is done so that it sits securely in its correct and intended position.
There is also a significant amount of accumulated debris and residue on the back of the drum that needs to be carefully cleaned and wiped away. And the drum pulley should also be meticulously and thoroughly cleaned of all rust and any dirt that has built up over time. And here as well, it is necessary to apply sealant to the place where the oil seal comes into contact with our shaft. This won't hurt, in addition to what we've already applied inside the oil seal. You can safely install the drum into the machine's tub. Carefully lower the tub. The main drive shaft is now securely in its designated place and is ready for operation. Gently press it in all the way. Now the drum spins. The drum spins without sticking or knocking. Now all that's left is
carefully lift the wheel and align it precisely with the axle assembly before sliding it back into its original position. Once it is seated correctly, take the bolt and begin threading it into the center by hand to ensure it catches properly. After the bolt is started, use your tools to continue rotating it clockwise, applying steady pressure until the bolt is tightened all the way down and the wheel is securely fastened and safe for use. Please double check the rotation of the object. The mechanism rotates smoothly without any signs of jamming or resistance. Once you have completed this specific step, you can go ahead and begin the process of installing the top cover of the tank back in its original place. Before installing the top cover, I would recommend thoroughly wiping the rubber seal, the rubber joint, and using a sealant, sanitary silicone to improve.
the tank was sealed and there was no leakage. It is important to note that silicone sealant is not aggressive towards rubber materials, so it won't cause any damage. You can safely proceed to cover the top lid now, and while you are doing that, make sure to carefully align the specific marks we made earlier so they sit perfectly flush with each other for a proper seal. Here is our mark. So it should be like this. Very carefully adjust it, so that the top cover fits perfectly into its designated place, ensuring it is aligned. Once you have completed that step, carefully take the specific bolts that were previously used to fasten the tank securely and begin to screw them back in one by one all the way around the entire outer perimeter of the assembly to ensure everything is properly aligned and held firmly in place.